course, coming up to your 80th birthday.
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
How are you feeling about turning 80? It's quite a milestone.
Astonished, really. Confused, because I don't feel 80 inside. But I realised it was this year I woke up one morning and I was in some old person's body. And I thought, what am I doing inside this old body? Anyway, but I'm also kind of amazed and delighted as well to have got this far. And I've no idea where the time went.
And still smashing it in your career, and you've had such an illustrious career to date, still continuing.
Yes, I'm still working, still kind of, they still haven't found me out.
Could you tell me about some of your highlights from your career so far? Because it's been such an incredible one.
Well, I suppose, I mean, the very first one, I became an actor by accident. Someone mistook me for an actor and offered me a job, and I took it because I was always had this philosophy of saying yes. And I ended up in a thing called the Ken Campbell Roadshow, and we created a show called An Evening with Sylvester McCoy, the Human Bomb, which I was a stuntman. So I used to, have bricks broken on my chest. I used to bang nails up my nose, escape from mailbags and chains. I set light to my head, blow fire, explode a bomb in my chest, try and break the world record for having ferrets down my trousers. It was a common everyday thing. No, it wasn't. I was a little stuntman in this mad comic show written by the genius of Ken Campbell, and it became very successful all over Europe, and it kind of started me off in my career. Then I was blessed to go and work for one of the great directors of the 20th century, theatre directors, Joan Littlewood, who, kind of revolutionized theatre from a working class background idea and made it, she would do Shakespeare, but with more entertaining, vaudevillian. And then I went on to work with Richard Eyre, who ended up running the National and all that. So as my steps went through doing various different working with amazing directors and people, and I worked with Ken Hill, who did The Invisible Man, which is, a story which is science fiction connection to it. Then Adrian Mitchell was a poet and playwright who got me Doctor Who. What happened was I was at the National. He wrote me a part for the National called The Pied Piper. I was the Pied Piper. John Nathan Turner came along to see it and went back afterwards. I learned many years later and said, I found my new doctor. And also, Adrian lived in the same street as one of the writers of Doctor Who, and he spoke to him about me being Doctor Who. So that got me into Doctor Who, and of course, I was handed this part. I was quite ignorant of it because I'd been working in the theatre for years, so I hadn't seen it. I had a distant memory of it. Patrick Troughton was my doctor, but it was a long, long time ago. And so I had no idea really what role I had been handed. And then discovered I'd been handed one of the great television acting roles where you could do anything with it. The canvas was enormous and you could do all sorts of things. And so that was a blessing. I mean, what a lucky person I was. And then various other things. That finished and I carried on acting in the theatre and did musicals. I was in opera. I was in operetta. I ended up getting into The Hobbit, which was, again, that came from Doctor Who. Because Peter Jackson was a Doctor Who fan. And that's how I got into that. I've done various other different things since then. I've done lots of Shakespeare, but I suppose the kind of top of the mountain would be The Fool and King Lear, which I did with some tall fellow called Ian McKellen. I think that was his name, yeah. Better known as Gandalf to some people. And we toured the world and we worked together. And I've carried on. I've just finished doing Father Brown, and it was written for me. The part was written for me. So I hope I gave a good job for it.
Absolutely. It's incredible to still, have such an amazing career and still be continuing that. Have you ever given any thought to retiring? Do you ever see yourself retiring, or do you want to carry on as long as possible?
Well, I'll carry on as long as possible, yes. No, I mean, the only way they're going to get rid of me is to fall off the stage into the pit.
And as you mentioned, of course, so many of us love you best as the Doctor.
Yes.
It was a role, I believe, you had your eye on for a little while, didn't you, before you got the job?
Yes. Yes, because for years people used to say to me, "You'd be Doctor Who." You know, they used to just say it, and I think part of the reason was I used to wear a scarf. I wore a scarf all the time, and I mean, you know, Tom Baker, one of the greats. I mean, he was in many ways upstaged by his scarf, and whenever people mentioned Doctor Who, the first thing they would say was the scarf. They wouldn't say Tom Baker. Hey, the scarf upstaged him. Tom, I don't know if you knew that, but you have been upstaged by his scarf. Anyway, I was wandering around and people said you should be the Doctor. Peter Davison was leaving, and then before Colin came in. So I got in touch with my agent and said, Peter Davison's leaving. Shall we try it, see if I'd be the Doctor? But they'd already cast Colin. And so I'd given up. And then 3 years later, Colin was leaving. And so I got in touch with my agent and said, you know, have another go. So my agent phoned John Nathan Turner and said, you know, I think you should see Sylvester McCoy. And John said, who? And my agent said, yes. And he said, oh, right, okay, anyway, thank you very much, and hung up. As luck would have it, a director I'd worked with and producer, Clive Doig, I did work Vision On with him. Vision On, Jigsaw, Eureka, See It, Saw It, all sorts of different children's shows. He phoned John Nathan Turner immediately after my agent and said, I think you should see Sylvester McCoy for Doctor Who. And John said, are you with the same agency? What's going on here? And he said, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I think you should. So this sparked John's interest, synchronicity. So he came and saw me at the National Theatre in the play, the Pied Piper, that Adrian Mitchell had written the part for me. And it was a great audition piece in a sense for the Doctor, because John went back and said, I found my new Doctor.
Amazing. And of course, thinking back to your very early days on set, you had quite a unique regeneration in that Colin Baker didn't want to come back for it.
Yes, you noticed, did you? Oh, surprised, because they dressed me up. They put me in Colin's costume. I think they lost me for 3 days because Colin's the big fella. And they put a wig on me and I looked like a Harpo Marx. But you don't see that because as they turn over, they go, turn my face into my face, yes. So yes, I'm an actor who's played two Doctors. I was the only one, but there's another one come along. Damn him. David is now playing Doctor Who number 10 and 14. I was 6 and 7.
You're just going to have to go back.
I got there first.
What were those early days on set like? You know, what's your lasting memory of them, the very first days?
Well, I mean, it was kind of, in a sense, daunting before I entered the room to do the first read-through. But then when I went in, there was an old mate of mine, Bonnie Langford. Now, Bonnie and I had been in the Pirates of Penzance at Drury Lane for over a year nearly, and I used to marry her every night and twice on Saturdays. And also I did the old-fashioned waltz with her. Luckily, I didn't cripple her. But she used to count it out to me. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there was Bonnie, who was a friend. That made it so much better. It would have been a bit more daunting if not. So yeah, so Bonnie was a friend, and that was great. I was still a bit kind of in awe, because Kate O'Mara was the Rani. She was my enemy, and Kate at that time was huge. She was in Dynasty or Dysentery or whatever it was called, and that made her world famous. And so a bit of awe really. But she was incredibly good. She wasn't a diva, a TV or film diva. She was. She loved the theatre. She was a great theatrical actress. People maybe didn't know that about her, but she did Shakespeare and kind of Regency plays, and absolutely skilled at her job, and really friendly. So that was all right, really. When we filmed, we did the filming outdoor, filming first, and at the end of it, John Nathan Turner used to like a party. So we had a party at the end, and Bonnie did her, stuff. And Bonnie, she is a West End diva, of immense talent, great singer, dancer and all that. And she did her party piece and knocked everyone out. And I rather pathetically played the spoons. Now, much to my surprise, this delighted Jonathan Turner. And he said to me, he said, "We've got to get those in Doctor Who." And I thought, he must be joking. Anyway, I get the script. And in the script, when I turned from Colin Baker, who I played brilliantly, into Sylvester McCoy, I have to look into this machine on a spaceship. And I find these two things I bring out. And they are like spoons. The rest of the cast, there was Wanda Wentham was in it. Now the reason she was a delight, and she and this other two very theatricals. We keep losing them, and they were all gossiping in the corner. That's by the by. One day, Wanda brought into the set her son, who was about 15. It was Benedict Cumberbatch, which was quite extraordinary, really. And I've seen Benedict. Benedict actually used to live in the same street as me, and I used to see him a bit and, watch him as he rose into an amazing, prominence and brilliance in his career. So that was quite interesting. But I did, as I said, talked about how Bonnie was underused, and I think she felt that too. She was kind of the stock companion. She got the job because she went to do a charity thing with the producer at Alton Towers, and she was one of the big dippers, and she screamed so well. It was like she got offered the job as being the companion because she was a good screamer. And in a way, it wasn't very satisfying for her because she's got much greater depth. So it was kind of just too light and not enough kind of... I think she kind of thought she could do better. And she has since, because Big Finish, which you know about, which is the audio ones, she's been allowed to develop and deepen and stretch her character wonderfully.